The year is 1492, and the edges of the known world are drawn in ink and guesswork. Mapmakers in Europe sketch familiar outlines of their own continent, the sweep of Africa's coast and the long-imagined shores of Asia. But the Atlantic, that wide, restless expanse, is still a place of rumor and fear. Sailors swap tales of monstrous serpents, whirlpools that swallow ships whole, and endless waters where a vessel might drift for eternity. But those same waters are also the only path left to reach the riches of the East. For decades, the overland Silk Road, the artery of trade that had carried silk, spices, and precious stones from Asia to Europe, has been constricted by the rise of the Ottoman Empire. Portuguese navigators, led by the legacy of Prince Henry the Navigator, have been edging further and further down Africa's coast, hoping to round the Cape of Good Hope to India. Spain, newly unified by the marriage of Ferdinand of Aragon and Isabella of Castile, has only just completed its centuries-long Reconquista. In January of this same year, the last Moorish stronghold of Granada fell to Spanish forces, ending nearly 800 years of Islamic rule in Iberia. It is a moment of triumph and opportunity. Spain's rulers now have soldiers without wars, treasuries hungry for new revenue, and a political desire to match Portugal's maritime daring. Into this atmosphere steps a man who is neither noble nor Spaniard, Christopher Columbus, born in Genoa, a man of modest origins but towering ambition. His idea is startling. Instead of traveling east to reach Asia, why not sail west across the Atlantic? Most scholars know the Earth is round, but they also know it is vast. Columbus's calculations shrink that size dangerously, underestimating the width of the oceans by thousands of miles. To his mind, Cathay and Cipangu, China and Japan, lie just over the horizon. To his critics, the man is chasing a phantom, and the ocean will devour him. Yet Columbus's confidence is absolute. I have always read, he later writes, that the world, both land and water, is spherical, and I have held to this idea for many years, and it has filled my heart with a wish to attempt the voyage. Christopher Columbus's youth is a tapestry of hardship, wandering, and relentless self-education. Born around 1451, he grows up amid the narrow streets of Genoa, the smell of salt and fish never far away. His father is a wool weaver, but young Christopher spends little time at the loom. By his teens, he is at sea, first on short runs in the Mediterranean, later on longer voyages to distant ports. In 1476, a fleet he sails with is attacked by French privateers off Cape St. Vincent. His ship is burned and sunk. Columbus survives only by gripping a piece of wreckage and swimming for miles to the Portuguese shore. This near-death experience does nothing to cool his appetite for the sea. Settling in Lisbon, he marries into a family tied to maritime exploration. His father-in-law has connections to Madeira and the Azores, islands that seem to Columbus like stepping stones into the unknown. Lisbon in these years is a ferment of nautical genius. Maps, charts, and sea logs pass through the hands of captains daily. Columbus studies them obsessively. He pores over the works of Ptolemy and the travels of Marco Polo, trying to align ancient reports with modern maps. Gradually, he builds his westward vision. In 1484, he pitches his plan to King John II of Portugal. It is rejected. The court's geographers deem it folly. Undeterred, Columbus tries Spain. The first approach in 1486 meets the same fate, a polite but firm no from Ferdinand and Isabella's advisors. Still, he lingers. He earns the favor of the Franciscan friar Juan Perez, former confessor to Queen Isabella, who becomes one of his key supporters. For 6 years, Columbus lobbies, argues, and refines his proposal. Finally, in April 1492, fresh from their victory at Granada, Ferdinand and Isabella decide the time is right for a gamble. The capitulations of Santa Fe are signed. Columbus is promised noble titles, the office of Admiral of the Ocean Sea, and a tenth of all riches he brings back. It is a wager with immense stakes. Should he fail, the Atlantic will swallow him. Should he succeed, Spain will have a new route to the wealth of the East. The order goes to the port of Palos de la Frontera. Provide ships for the admiral's voyage. 3 are assembled. The Niña, real name Santa Clara, is a nimble caravel owned by the Pinzon brothers. The Pinta, another caravel, is fast, but has a history of needing repairs. The Santa María, a broader, slower carrack, will be Columbus's flagship. By modern standards, they are small. The Santa María is just over 70 feet in length. Below deck, space is cramped, dark, and airless. Men sleep in shifts, some on coils of rope, others on the bare planks. The air below smells of pitch, salt, and sweat. The crew is harder to assemble than the ships. Many sailors in Palos refuse outright. Some believe the voyage is doomed, that the sea stretches endlessly westward until it falls off the edge of the world. Others fear sea monsters, boiling waters, or winds that never change direction. The Pinzon brothers, respected captains, throw their weight behind the venture, helping recruit skilled men. The Crown offers pardons to petty criminals willing to join, and slowly, 90 men sign on. Provisions are packed with methodical care: salted beef and pork, dried fish, hardtack biscuits, dried beans, wine, olive oil, garlic, onions, and cheese. Barrels of fresh water are stored, though sailors know it will sour within weeks. Navigational tools are loaded: compasses, quadrants, astrolabes, and the vital hourglasses to mark the passage of time. Small trade goods are brought to win goodwill from any people they encounter: beads, mirrors, bells, and red cloth. On August 3rd, 1492, at dawn, the 3 ships catch the tide down the Rio Tinto. The river mist lifts, revealing the open mouth of the Atlantic. The people of Palos gather on the shore, some cheering, some crossing themselves. The fleet turns south for the Canary Islands, the last European outpost before the open sea. They depart the Canaries on September 6th. From here on, the horizon becomes their only constant. The days blur into a rhythm of labor and waiting. Sails are trimmed and adjusted for the trade winds. Decks are scrubbed with sand. Nets are cast for fish when the weather allows. At night, the men sleep in brief shifts, the sound of waves slapping the hull beneath them. The first weeks pass with steady winds. By mid-September, they enter the Sargasso Sea, where the surface is thick with golden-brown weed. Some sailors mutter that the ships will be trapped. Columbus, ever confident, reassures them. The seaweed is harmless, the winds steady. Still, tension builds. Food begins to spoil. Water takes on a foul taste. Biscuit is infested with weevils. The monotony eats at morale. Columbus keeps 2 sets of logs, one with the true distance traveled and one with shorter figures he reads aloud to keep spirits up. By October 7th, birds appear, a sure sign of land. But days pass with no shore in sight. Murmurs grow into open talk of turning back. Columbus calls the men together and strikes a deal. If no land is found in 3 days, they will return. Fortune favors him. On October 11th, just before midnight, Rodrigo de Triana on the Pinta cries out, "Tierra, tierra." The faint outline of land glows in the moonlight. The voyager's gamble has paid off, for now. At dawn on October 12th, 1492, the 3 ships anchor off a small island in what is now the Bahamas. Columbus names it San Salvador, though its original name, spoken by the Lucayan people who live there, is Guanahani. The morning light reveals a landscape unlike anything the Spaniards have ever seen. White sands, dense green palms, and waters of impossible clarity. The Lucayans emerge cautiously from the tree line, tall, graceful, and curious. They carry spears tipped with fish bone, wear ornaments of gold in their noses and ears, and are entirely unarmed for war. Columbus approaches with gifts, red caps, glass beads, and bells. The Lucayans offer parrots, cotton thread, and simple woven cloth in return. In his journal, Columbus notes their generosity and lack of iron, and immediately wonders where the gold they wear has come from. To him, every gesture is a clue. The Lucayans, unaware of European ambitions, treat the strangers as visitors, not conquerors. But beneath the exchange of trinkets, Columbus is already planning his next move, to find the source of the gold and secure it for Spain. Over the following days, the fleet sails among the islands, naming each as they go. Columbus is convinced he is in the outer reaches of Asia, perhaps near Japan, and that the mainland of Cathay cannot be far. The fleet moves through the Bahamas and into the larger island of Cuba, which Columbus names Juana in honor of Prince Juan of Spain. Here the Spaniards encounter villages where tobacco is cultivated and smoked, a custom entirely foreign to Europe. The lush interior yields fruits they have never seen, guava, cassava, and maize. But Columbus's thoughts never stray far from gold. Locals point south to an island called Bohio, which they say is rich in the metal. This, Columbus believes, must be Hispaniola. Arriving there, he finds a land of mountains, fertile valleys, and abundant rivers. The Taíno people here live in larger settlements, with well-built houses and fields. Gold flecks appear in the rivers, and some ornaments are fashioned from it. Columbus quickly envisions a Spanish outpost to harvest these resources. The Santa María, however, runs aground on Christmas Eve. The ship cannot be saved, and its timbers are used to build a small fort, La Navidad, which becomes the first European settlement in the Americas. 39 men are left behind to hold it, with promises from the Taíno cacique Guacanagarix that they will be protected. For Columbus, this fort is not just a necessity, but a foothold, a seed for the empire he imagines. On January 16, 1493, with the Niña and Pinta, the only ships remaining, Columbus sets sail for Spain. The return voyage is anything but smooth. Storms lash the fleet in the North Atlantic. At one point, Columbus, fearing they will be lost, writes an account of the voyage, seals it in a barrel, and casts it into the sea in the hope it might be found if they perish. They survive, reaching the Azores in February and Lisbon by early March. Finally, on March 15th, Columbus returns to Palos, where his arrival is met with astonishment. He brings with him gold trinkets, exotic birds, and several Taíno captives. At court in Barcelona, Ferdinand and Isabella welcome him as Admiral of the Ocean Sea. Plans are made almost immediately for a second voyage, larger, armed, and intent on colonization. Yet the true legacy of the first voyage is already in motion. Columbus believes he has found a new route to Asia, but in reality, he has set into motion a chain of events that will permanently link the old and new worlds. His arrival marks the beginning of the Columbian Exchange, the massive transfer of plants, animals, goods, peoples, and diseases between continents. For Europe, it is the dawn of an age of expansion. For the indigenous peoples of the Americas, it is the opening act of centuries of upheaval, resistance, and transformation. In the years to come, Columbus will return 3 more times, his fortunes rising and falling, his reputation shifting with each voyage. But in 1492, standing before Spain's rulers, he is a hero who has done what many thought impossible: crossed the ocean and returned to tell the tale.